Aloha, and welcome to Hawaiian Islands Professional Panel of Experts, a nonprofit organization that provides free community financial education to empower individuals, families, and their future. I'm Ricky Niguez. I'm here today with Joni Lomtorio and Ikolu Rollins, and we're here to deliver the HIPPE Financial 101 Training and Budgeting Workshop, specifically the 101.4 Money Management course. So, Joni, what do you feel this course is? Can you give us an idea of what everybody's about to see?
All right. So for this money management portion of this e-learning class, it is all about combining what you've learned in the income and its capabilities video, along with the debt management video, along with the credit management video. So take a look at all those if you haven't seen them yet. Everything is all about how to manage your money, knowing what's coming in, how to actually obtain more if you need more to come in, as well as figuring out what your debt is, figuring out a plan to make sure you can actually reduce that. And also just example of having a goal in mind to the reason of why we're doing this. So whether it's retirement that you're looking forward to, or if it's you're buying a car, if you're buying a home, even if you're buying a boat, these are large purchases. So managing your money all encompasses all these things. And we're going to talk about that shortly. But I'm going to let you go ahead.
So everybody out there, if you have not visited our other courses, I recommend before you watch this course, attend the other courses. They're all free. They're all right next to these on our YouTube. Now, there's going to be a lot of topics where we'll even tell you, you might want to revert back to those other classes before proceeding. I highly recommend you do, because there's things that you have to really understand curriculum-wise and credible resource-wise to really grasp the concept of bringing all this together and now focusing your energy towards your goal or your families or your orbit, whatever your very intimate orbit, whatever that goal is for the common goal. Okay. So this is the second to last course of the 101 course that we provide. Ikolu, lead the way.
HIPPE uses the most up-to-date information on budgeting concepts, financial education, and credit information. We are educated professionals that bring the best practices from experts in their fields for free as community charity.
HIPPE is not responsible or otherwise liable for any advice, guidance, or instruction that creates a negative outcome. Recommendations accepted by individuals are at the control and execution of those individuals, including all outcomes therein.
Okay, everybody, we say this in the beginning of every class. We can lead you to the water. It is your choice to either drown in it and wreck yourself financially, choke on it, and make your situation miserable to you and very difficult, or use it to make you a better person, to make you more financially sound, focus towards your financial future wealth. Nourish yourself with this and accomplish your goals. That's what we're here for. Okay. Joni, floor is yours.
All right. So we talked about, like I said briefly, we talked about money management. It is a culmination of understanding really your income, understanding your debt, understanding your credit and your situation, really to achieve the financial wellness that you want to be at. It's different for everybody for those goals. I know for myself, I think about retirement. I'm a little bit older than a lot of you guys. Some people, it could be obtaining your first home. And those for that are in that fun mode, hey, you want a boat? Let's go plan to buy a boat. So all this really is important, because understanding your whole situation, that actually will propel you to get to that goal of whatever you want it to be. So we're going to talk about a couple of tips and some practical ways of really just understanding your circumstances. Methods are really ways that you could improve your situation. And then also we'll talk about some tools that will help you with cost savings in your daily life. Do you guys have tips before I start this section? What are some of your ideas for managing your money?
Well, for me, I got to look at everything. I got to know what I'm dealing with, right? So I got to at least know in any situation, I got to lay out my cards, right? If I'm holding it, if I'm playing spades and I got, all my cards in my hands, and I got to figure out how I'm going to win this game, me and my partner. And in this case, it could be a financial partner, right? We got to lay it all on the table. In this case, obviously, you'd be shuffling it in your hands to try to figure out, what you're going to lead with, what is more important to you to lead out with in a game of spades? What's the strongest thing I can do first? This is the same thing that we do. Can you think of anything else that we would do on a daily that's kind of like that, Ikolu?
Oh, first of all, I respect that, because really what you're doing is thinking ahead, right? And to me, that's always important, especially when it comes to your finances. Definitely when it comes to the tips on how, just something as simple as Joni actually touched on this in previous sessions. It's understanding not just how money works, but how you work, right? Like, I know we're going to go a bit deeper into that later. But to me, I think that is the most important thing, because you could understand something, but if you don't understand how you approach it, then that's a completely different animal.
Right, exactly. So tip number 1, understand your debt. My recommendation is make a list of what you owe, to who you owe it to, and the interest rate. Basically, just write it all down. If you want to use a spreadsheet, you can do that too. That's helpful, but it's as simple as just writing a column of who your creditors that you owe to, what your balance is, the interest rate, and then what your monthly minimum payment is. That's just tip number 1, understanding what you have and what's on your plate, right? So tip number 2 is really to start tracking your spending. These are some simple approaches. You can use pen and paper, start with a simple spreadsheet, write it all down. Some people still use a checkbook register. Who are those? Do you guys still use a checkbook?
No, we met.
What's a checkbook, guys?
There you go. So
doesn't know. However, the older generation, and I see actually on the mainland, not so much, but definitely here on the island, a lot of people still use their checkbook, and that's okay. It's writing it down and also subtracting what you owe to who you're writing a check to. All right.
And I got something to add. There are still people that do use their checkbook register. Over the courses that we've had over the past year or so, we've had several people say they actually still use these. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with using it. The most important thing that you see here on these 2 tabs is you need to use what works for you. If it works for you, it's functional, you can make it happen. Don't try to divulge yourself and extend yourself into all these other things and devote time to it if it's not going to work for you. Everything in life is baby steps, and so is the way you manage your debt. Take the baby steps, start simple, just like Joni said with tip 1, and then you can start opening the door to the more difficult.
It's getting too windy.
It's too windy over there? If you don't know, Ikolu's enjoying life over in Molokai. It's, great life over there.
So simple approaches to tracking your spending. Yes, you can put it on a spreadsheet, use your checkbook, put it down, just basically write it down. There are programs that you could use. There's mint.com, Quicken apps, and there's several different apps that you can use to track your spending and also know exactly where you are with your situation. Mm-hmm. So tip number 3, make a list. So actually going back to tracking your spending, what I recommend, do a 30-day tracking. So beginning of the month, just write down what you're spending money on, whether it's going to Starbucks, going to the market, figuring out how much you're spending. That is the beginning of really understanding where your money is going out. And so you do have to start tracking it, but write down everything for a month. If not a month, try 2 weeks just to see, okay, I'm going to get Starbucks coffee every day. That's like $4 or $5 a day times 5. If you're, working 5 days a week, that's $20. So simple as that.
You're going to see us dialogue exactly where Joni just talked about, where she will even lay out bi-weekly and then capture it monthly to really figure out where all your money is going to debt, to living expense, housing expense, and even any other additional spending.
Yes, thank you. All right. So make a list of what I need to spend on and what are my wants. What are some of your wants out there, guys? What is your list?
I want to pay off debts.
You want or you need to?
Ooh, you know what? Great point, Ikolu. A year ago, I needed to. Then I positioned myself properly by budgeting, by making a plan, making a goal. And now I'm in the position where I want to, because things are under control. So again,
Awesome.
control is a big word, right? So just like Ecolu said, some people need it, right, Ecolu?
Yep. Yep. And, that actually does bring up a good point too, because as Rick just mentioned, right, like it all depends on the situation that you're in. And as we change our financial situations, our goals may also change. I think they should, to be honest, not achieve that goal that you've been shooting for 3 years. And then you have nothing left after that, like life kind of gets empty. So for sure, should be constantly evolving.
Yeah, definitely. It's prioritizing what that need to spend and want to spend on is really. When you think about, we talk about this in our 201 class, bare bone essentials, and really we talk about zero-based budgeting. So understanding, one, the needs, keep a roof over your head, food on the table, your utilities on. That's your needs, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Wants are the other things of your credit card bills and things like that. But understanding what your bare bone essentials are really is the beginning of the money management that you need to actually focus on for yourself. These methods are really actions that you can do for yourself to really improve your situation. Trim the fat, reducing the wants. Now, a lot of this is internal and really psychological. Trimming the fat is, do you want to pay more to your minimum payment to your credit card? Do you want to drop expensive habits? Step away from your vices. What are those vices? Is it shopping? Is it eating out? Is it ordering Amazon? What are those vices for you? And figure out what those are, because honestly, that's the number one way to trim the fat. What are some of your vices, guys?
Well, we kicked away getting any kind of coffee anywhere because we make coffee better than other places make it. So check the block, right? Vices sometimes can be, my vice is fast food, right? Cut out the fast food because that's diet wise, which is totally off the subject. Can I afford it? Sure. But that's a vice. So even though I can't afford it, it does add up. Just like how I gave the previous discussions in the debt part about smokers, about all kinds of other things that as you collectively bring things together and it adds up, it will take effect and it will control your life. So yeah, I kind of got a fetish for fast food. It's easy. I like it. It makes me feel good. My body doesn't like it sometimes, but I like it.
Yeah.
What about you, Nicolu?
For me, I'd have to say, like, I got rid of it 2 years ago, but the only thing that I could probably consider to be a vice was video games. Having to have that next gen console or that newest game. And yeah, like when I kind of discovered that it wasn't serving me and that was a want, and like I was like, okay, I think, would I rather spend time playing video games or would I rather spend time with my son? So hands down chose the second.
That's a great point right there. There's so many people that are going after the next newest game. Joni's got a great story about how she disciplined her son into thinking of video games smarter at a young age, right, Joni?
He was in middle school back then, and he would get an allowance. And so when it came to Christmas time, he's like, I want the new PS2. That's how old he is. PS2. We bought the PS2 for him, but we said, you know what? I bought this gaming system for you. However, you're going to buy all your video games yourself because this is what you really want. Granted, we all get the PS2, however, he bought the games. And honestly, I have never bought a single game. So there was one game, I don't know what it was back then. It was $59.99. And it was back in like September, October. He really wanted it. And he knew he was going to get the PS2. Well, because it was $59.99, I was like, okay, that's your cash that you're using. And because he's holding the cash, he's like, okay, I think I'm going to wait. And so he would watch. And eventually it was down to $29.99. However, almost a year later, he did save $30. And for him, delayed gratification was what he was learning.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anyways. All right. So yeah, delayed gratification was a lesson we learned in middle school into high school. All right. So method number 2, we're going to talk about why it's important or really just understanding consolidation, negotiation, and debt reduction. What do you guys understand about that for consolidation? What do you
Rick, you
understand?
can go ahead and first, man. That's
Okay.
a pretty heavy one.
Okay, you can pick up my pieces because I already know you're going to be poking holes in everything. So here we go. Because Nicole is my expert all things when it comes to doing this as a profession in professional status. So let's talk consolidate. Okay, the purpose of consolidating is to eliminate big payments to all of your minimum payments to your debt, maybe even increase payments to specific debts, but less than what the bank would want you to do. Also, it's quite possible to get a lower interest rate when you consolidate. Now, you got to be careful and you got to pick and choose your products wisely because Joni's going to explain to you how you can manage your own debt and your own pay downs, right? Here in a few slides. Now, negotiation is another great tool. And there's a company called Consolidated Credit Solutions. They're another nonprofit organization. I highly recommend you visit them. They negotiate with a list of lenders, and these have to be nationally recognized lenders or anybody else that's mainstream that they've established a contract with, to a sense, or an agreement with. From there, they can talk down interest rates. I've seen them drop interest rates down to 1% on credit cards, down to 3% on credit cards. Okay, I've used them in my past too, and they do work. Okay, so it's a very good idea to talk to a debt negotiator. Now, there's pros and cons with that and consolidation, where yes, your card will close. And if you paid attention to our debt or credit management class that was previous to this, you will see that when you close a revolving debt, that will harm your credit because it stops an active account and turns it into a closed account, an open account to a closed account. So I highly recommend you pick and choose wisely if you want to use those tools. Okay, reduce debt to reduce payment. You can do the plan yourself to chunk down debt without needing to consolidate or negotiate. Joni's going to talk about that here in a bit. But as you see, these are all external things that control you. You have to flip it around to where you control that external environment. It's a matter of thinking and using the right tools. What do you think, Ikolu? Did I miss anything?
No, I mean, I do want to highlight that last part. It's a matter of using the right tools, right? We should see all of these different products, all of these different education, all these different companies, whatever you want to call them, as just that, tools, resources for us to learn how to properly utilize. And as for the negotiation part, I stumbled across this awesome book called Never Split the Difference. If you guys want to, dive into that, by a guy named Chris Voss. I think that's his name. Pretty sure that's his name. But yeah, it's a great book talking about negotiating, and it's relevant in terms of really, it all depends on everyone's individual situations, obviously, right? We are saying very blanket statements right now. As for what it looks like for you guys specifically, that would 100% require a deeper dive. But it all does come down to, like Rick mentioned, like I mentioned, just utilizing the tools that are available to you right now and recognizing them as such, as tools, as resources, not as, quote unquote, free money, as most people do when it comes to consumer debt.
That's very well said, guys. You know what? Consolidation is one thing, reduction, negotiation. These are all different tools to reduce your debt. So method number 3, debt payoff. So we talk about different ways to pay off your debt faster. There's 3 different ways that we discuss here. The snowball method, the avalanche method, the cash-based envelope method. So with the snowball method, I will show you guys. Basically, you're going to write down a list of all your debts, the balances on them, you'll have your interest rate, and then you'll have your minimum payments. So with your snowball, the goal is, and this is more of a psychological thing, the goal is to pay off the smallest balance first versus the largest balance first. Me personally, this is what I like to do, because if I have a small debt, I like to knock it out, and then it makes me feel good. That's snowball method. So if you look at this chart, the smallest amount, the $1,200 was discovered. That's the first payment you would go after. You would take the minimum payment once you're done paying that first debt. roll it into your MasterCard payment, your second bill, which is the next lowest. Now, keep in mind, this is in regards to not even using your credit cards anymore. Like you completely stop charging on them. So you're going to roll that first payment that you paid off that bill, your minimum payment or whatever payment you're making, roll it into the second one, and it continues. That's the snowball method.
Now, I would like to add in there really quick before you get to Avalanche. This tool that we're actually using is from NerdWallet. So we have the link there. We highly recommend use these free resources. This is a very competent resource out there. You, just like Joni said, you just got to plug it in. And this is a live snapshot from NerdWallet. Now, the next slides, you're going to see some animation, of course, courtesy of HIPPE, but it does the same effect and it will line up the different debts for you. So I highly recommend use these resources. If you know other resources, let us know. And let us know if there's any other tools that you like that actually do really well.
All right. So avalanche method, a little bit different, where you're going to pay off the highest interest rate first versus the lowest balance. Now, if you look at the order, so the Visa was the first one you're going to pay off. Even if the balance is at $12,000, the interest rate is at 20%. So with the avalanche method, it's going to first attack paying less interest, and that's the goal, to achieve your
debt payoff.
Your debt, yes, thank you.
Joni's a snowballer. I'm an avalancher, okay? I hate interest rate. I hate the fact that the banks win every time I slide my card and they get to charge me, right? So for all those families out there where you didn't have a choice, just like all of us at one point in our lives, where you don't have a choice and you have to use a card, you got to use your spending wisely, okay? You have to budget wisely. You have to use your money management wisely, because as you see, that 20% interest rate can add up over time. Now it's made $12,000 of debt over your head. And unfortunately, this might have been the only card you had that had money in it. And unfortunately, just like in our debt management course that we provide, unfortunately, sometimes, yes, you do have to use credit for your day-to-day. Not all of us prefer to do that, but everybody's been in a position where you had to. We have to change our mindset, and we have to establish these goals. We have to target those wants versus needs. And then we have to use a practical application. The biggest thing Joni does with Snowball is psychological, like the reward factor, right, Joni, with Snowball?
Yeah, I feel better when I just pay off a bill and I don't have to worry about it. That card gets tucked away and it's done. And then I focus on the next bill, the next lowest bill, because I can. And it's psychological. It doesn't work for everyone. Example, yourself. However, you have to figure out what is going to work for you and also make you feel better about that you're hacking away at these bills and you're paying them off.
Almost always, number 5 is going to be a student loan or a mortgage. Like almost always. And something that I actually started doing was, here's a new concept that, you guys can look up. It's called cash flow index. For me, cash flow is super important. What cash flow index is basically taking a look at how much every loan costs per the principal that you owe. And what I do is then look at how much interest, is applied to each account and just go with the highest cash flow index number that I find. And that's how I kind of organize them. So it's kind of a combination of both of these things in itself too. It's pretty interesting.
Thanks, Nicola. That's huge. You have to find out what works for you, and you want to use different tools to combine with. We're here just to give you the very basics. Please research out there, use these tools. Now, what I can tell you, depending on the type of person you are, whether you're an avalancher, snowballer, or a cash flower, use whatever gives you the gratification. If it doesn't give you the gratification, it's not going to work for you. My gratification is if I eliminate that 20%, I know the next target of mine is at 18%. And when I get rid of that 16%, oh man, you want to talk about a weight off my chest? That would feel so good. And just like the snowball method, when you pay off that number 1, you've been dedicating your budget with that $500 in it, okay? Keep that mentality. If you're surviving right now, paying that $500, take that $500 and immediately dump it into number 2. Don't think you have an extra $500. The same thing applies on how we look at savings. If you already program yourself not to expect that money, you're good. I'll throw one at you, and Nicolo and Joni, you can answer. You just, shoot away. Can you then reprogram yourself at some point in this method of paying stuff off where now you redirect money towards a savings or an investment because it's already gone from your mind, right? Is that possible?
Absolutely. Everything is possible. It's almost like it's mind games. You're playing games with in your own head. Okay, I'm going to put this money to this bill, and you know what? It's going to keep going, keep going, keep going. And you're actually compartmentalizing that amount of money potentially into savings later. So it is actually a compartmentalization type of psychological thinking, right? You get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And, I just told someone this the other day, you need to make sure that every dollar you have has a home. If you don't give it a home, it's going to go live with someone else. I can guarantee you that. Whether that's going back into your debts, whether that's, savings, retirement, whatever, right? Like you just need to make sure every single dollar you have coming into your life is assigned someplace to go and sleep. Because if not, it's going to sleep with someone else.
Well said. Thank you, guys. All right. So cash-based envelope system is a simple system of knowing you having the money in your envelope and you know where that money is going to be directed to, whether it's utility or your rent or your mortgage or, food. That's simple cash-based envelope system.
Let's comment on that really quick. That's for those that don't like spreadsheets, that don't like software, those people that like to write things down. Let's make that clear. If my rent is due, I put the money into my rent envelope when I get paid, and that envelope goes untouched until it's time to pay rent. The money that I use for groceries goes into an envelope and doesn't get touched until it's time to buy groceries. Now, some people need that type of control to make sure they don't slide a debit card because it can be addicting to some people. Again, your degree of control is all up to you. Can you do that? Oh, I'll throw one at you. Can you do that with separate debit accounts, separate types of accounts? You could. I know some banks that will allow you to set up 5 checking accounts. Go do your research. They'll let you set up 10 checking accounts per person for free, just as long as one account gets your automatic payment. So you can use a combination of all these tools, just like it says on top. You can use combined methods in order or just use one.
Yes, I do that something similar to my credit union account. And I have designated savings that when I get my check-in, it goes into certain savings. So similar system, just in my bank account.
Whichever method you guys choose, just be consistent, 100%. Just like commit to it and do it. Show up, be intentional and just do it. If you're kind of, skittish on any one of them, then it's not going to work. You really need to figure out what works for you and just commit. And also at the same time, celebrate every single win. Doesn't matter how big, how small. Hey, I got paid today. That's a win. Hey, I bought my groceries. That's a win. You can now provide for your family for the rest of the month or week, whatever it is. Celebrate every single win. And I'm sure that it'll end up working out in the end.
Well said. Nice job. All right. So method number 4, make more money. So we talked about this, previously with side gigs or getting a part-time job in our Income and Its Capabilities class. Look at that class if you haven't seen it. There's so many different ideas of what you can do to make more money. There are tons.
So what does that do? Making more money, the purpose of that is to accelerate your plan, okay? Method number 4, make more money. You establish a plan, just like Nicolo said. Once it's there, then you use that reward factor. You congratulate yourself for accomplishing the little feats, using cash instead of credit, right? Accomplish these goals mentally in your head and take responsibility when things are good, just as well as you have to take responsibility when things are bad. You have to do it when you're doing good too. How can you speed up the plan from that point forward? Research, just like Joni said, our income capability slides. We even have a whole list of different ways and ideas that you can just go out and try to make some more money if you got time. It all depends on the person, but it will accelerate your bill payoff if you use that money wisely. It will accelerate debt payoff. It'll also accelerate savings. It'll help you transition to that mode where you start becoming your own borrower for your own self, your own bank per se, to where if you need something, you can dip into savings from that point forward.
I wanted to actually point out something here. Really what this slide focuses on, I'll throw this out there, is by understanding your spending habits, by understanding where your money is going, by understanding how you're going to be paying off your debts and what it looks like at the end, by adding in more income, what you're really doing is learning how to increase your household's cash flow. And then not only do you learn how to do that, but then you leverage that to then have it work for you. So whether that is paying off your debt to further increase your cash flow, whether that's to further another side hustle to further increase your income, which further increases your cash flow. That's really all it comes down to, is how much money at the end of the month do you have after everything's paid off, and what are you going to do with it?
Very good. Very good. All right. Comments, thoughts? You know what? If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, do subscribe and then put in your comments and your thoughts. We'll get back and we'll actually, if we can, we'll answer some of those questions for you guys. We have our once a month meet and greet where we will be online to discuss whatever questions you have.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for watching this video. Thank you very much for finding our content. Please share it to anybody who needs it. Just like Joni said, subscribe to our YouTube. Just search HIPPE Podcast and you will see everything pop up that we have out there, to include interviews with specific people, and future success stories will also be applied. As you subscribe, that will also allow you to get the newest content if we do replace a video with some upgrades. Okay, we take all your feedback and we actually apply it when it's time to update our curriculum. Also, please do the survey. You can leave comments in the survey as well. This will allow us to continue our credibility that we are reaching the intended goal of accomplishing free education to all communities who are willing to watch and learn. Lastly, please check out our website, www.hippe-education.org, for every bit of who we are, what we do, and the different programs we actually accomplish. We do a lot of community engagements as well. We're out there not just for education, but trying to encourage the community to really come together and support one another. Besides that, it's been a great pleasure giving this class. We hope that you log on and see all the rest of our classes, and hopefully one day we will see you in the upcoming live or in-person events. Thank you very much. We will see you at the next class.
Aloha.
Aloha.